The Stone Zone, with legendary Republican strategist and political icon and pundit Roger Stone. Stone has served as a senior campaign aide to 3 Republican presidents. He is a New York Times best-selling author and a longtime friend and advisor of President Donald Trump. As an outspoken libertarian, Stone has appeared on thousands of broadcasts, spoken at countless venues, and lectured before the prestigious Oxford Political Union and the Cambridge Union Society. Due to his 4+ decades in the political and cultural arena, Stone has become a pop culture icon. And now, here's your host, Roger Stone.
Welcome, I'm Roger Stone. I'm back from the presidential inauguration of our 47th president, and I'm delighted to be with you. I must say, Washington, D.C. is very cold at this time of year. Now, if you're looking at my necktie and saying, wow, that's much thinner than the tie Roger Stone would normally wear, well, this tie was a gift from Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. That's right. When I think, correctly named him to my international best and worst dressed list, a tradition that I've carried on for now 16 years, well, he very graciously sent me this tie. You can't see it, but it has little elephants on it. So to Robert Kennedy, soon to be the Secretary of HHS, thank you very much, my friend. A lot of good news this morning, but to begin with, let me bring in my co-host, the editor-in-chief of Slingshot.news, who now has his own show here at Worldview Tube, Troy Smith.
Roger, as always, an honor to be with you in the Stone Zone. It looks like you're thawing out after that trip to D.C. I know you had to be frozen over. It's glad to have you back here in the Stone Zone with me.
It was brutal. I mean, a lot of the streets were closed off for security reasons, and therefore, many times to get wherever you wanted to go, whether it was for one of the great official events, the candlelight dinner, the Starlight Ball, the Liberty Ball, or even just for the rally at the Cap Center, which was vintage Trump. I see that you showed parts of that here on the Zone. You had to walk, and you had to walk many blocks. The wind was frigid and cutting. My wife actually has windburn on her face, but overall, of the 5 inaugurations I have attended, this was without any question the best. A lot of good news. Let's start with, I think, the most important, and that is President Donald Trump, who made a historic pledge when he went to the Libertarian Party Convention, National Convention, that on day 1, he said he would pardon Ross Ulbricht. Ross Ulbricht, for those who aren't familiar, is the man who invented the dark web. Now, this prosecution by the Biden administration, actually I think it started under the Obama administration, never made any sense at all. All Ross Ulbricht did was invent a technology. Now, there is no question that some people use the technology to conduct illegal activities, selling drugs or guns, but this would be like indicting Alexander Graham Bell because he invented the telephone, and then some criminal conducts a drug deal over the phone. You don't indict the criminal, you indict the man who invented the telephone. Never made any sense. It was a classic case of government overreach. Angela McArdle, the national chairwoman of the Libertarian Party, was a strong voice and an effective advocate for clemency. Many people thought this was not possible, but President Trump made a bold pledge when he spoke to their national convention, and he has kept that pledge. Promises kept, promises made, promises kept. I am really happy for Lynn Ulbricht, his mother, with whom I became a good friend, and for their entire family. We hope that he can now get back to having a normal life without the boot of the deep throat, of the deep state on his throat. The other good news, Troy, I'm let you talk about this a little bit. The promised clemency for the January 6th detainees. There was some speculation after Vice President Vance said a couple of days ago that Perhaps they would look at the cases of those who were convicted of nonviolent crimes differently than those convicted of violent crimes. But in the end, I believe of some 1,600 cases that were examined, there were 15 acts of clemency, complete pardons issued. Talk to us about this and show us what you got.
Well, Roger, we have some videos on this that we can show of some of these detainees getting out. You know, it's been a long period of time that these individuals have been subject to some of the worst treatment that we've seen. And we talked about it on the show, Roger. Some of them have been treated worse than those in Guantanamo. And we've seen families destroyed. You know, the left likes to cry about families separated at the border that come into this country illegally, but they don't care about families separated because of nonviolent crimes on January 6th. We have a video real quickly of one of these 1,500 people that's been pardoned by President Trump reuniting with their family following a release from prison. Just a magical moment here. This is what America is really all about, Roger. When we come back, I'm going to ask you about the impact of these pardons and the reaction from the media, and how do you think that this is going to impact things going forward? Let's roll that clip.
Daddy's home.
Roger, your thoughts on that one?
This is really, really moving. This is the most disturbing thing about this. I think largely because of the work of Dr. Darren Beatty over at Revolver News. And by the way, if you don't follow revolver.news, let me highly recommend it to you. I think his investigative reporting has more than overwhelmingly proven that the events at the Capitol on January 6th was indeed a fed-surrection. How long did FBI Director Christopher Wray avoid the direct question from those charged with congressional oversight as to how many plainclothes FBI agents, provocateurs, I say, antagonists, were in the crowd? Now we have a Department of Justice report that shows us that there were at least 26 agitators in the crowd, perhaps more. Will he be held responsible? Sadly, I doubt it. Yet the left, as they are wont to do, it doesn't matter how debunked, disproven, or discredited one of their fake narratives is, they just keep repeating it over and over and over again. But what's really disturbing is the conditions that these men and women were kept under. First of all, many of them denied medical attention for life-threatening illnesses. You had January 6 detainees die of cancer while incarcerated. You had one man lost an eye because they were denied basic medical attention. We're talking about fetid conditions, being forced to sleep on a wet cement floor, no clean potable water, toilets backed up. And if you complained, well, you got a beating and you got your food laced with either maggots or laced with cleaning agents. Merrick Garland and the director of the Bureau of Prisons are responsible for this. I didn't see them getting any pardons, by the way. I really think this should be investigated by the congressional majority and by the new Justice Department. This is a violation of the Geneva Conventions. We don't even treat international terrorists as badly as we treated these men and women. I would also say that there are two cases that I'm now going to focus on. There are two men who are still in danger. Jeremy Brown, who essentially was approached by the FBI and they tried to recruit as an informant. And when he refused, they trumped up charges against him. He, for technical reasons having to do with the search of his home in Tampa, Florida, is still incarcerated. So although he had done nothing wrong, he's still in federal custody. We're going to have his attorney and his girlfriend on the show tomorrow to explore that. And then there is the case of Jonathan Mellis. Jonathan Mellis did get a pardon for his January 6th related charges, but because of some antiquated codicil in Virginia state law, because he was had a prior conviction many years ago for which he had served all of his time. This second act of being charged and convicted in D.C. triggered a return of a potential sentence of 10 years for him. We're not only going to be exploring both of these cases, but Troy and I are going to be raising money to get new attorneys to fight for the freedom of those two men. This will be coming up on tomorrow's Stone Zone. Troy?
Well, and Roger, I just wanted to ask you because I saw a tweet from Senator Dick Durbin yesterday where he claimed to have met with Kash Patel, and he claimed that Kash Patel was not right for the job. And he went on a long Twitter thread rant about how Kash Patel is not the right man for the job. Does this tie into what you're talking about with the Justice Department? I mean, we're talking about Geneva Convention violations, the way these people were treated, and that's just scratching the surface of the crimes of the Justice Department during the last 4 years, Roger. So is his opposition, do you think, Kash Patel, that the Democrats and establishment Republicans are going to try to rally to stop him in order to stop investigations into the establishment politicians who kind of let this happen?
You know, Troy, I think you've hit it right on the nose. There are three appointments here that scare the daylights out of the deep state. It was Dick Durbin, the hack politician from Chicago, who met with Pam Bondi, the president's nominee for attorney general, the other day, and he put out a tweet saying that he wasn't sure that she could divide her loyalty between the Constitution and her loyalty to President Trump. Hey, Senator, I don't think you can divide your loyalty between Chuck Schumer and your constitutional responsibilities, because let's be honest, you're not allowed to fart without the approval of Chuck Schumer. You're a hack. You have no argument. Pam Bondi is superbly qualified to be Attorney General. In fact, I'd go so far as to say she's performed better in her job as Florida Attorney General than you have as a U.S. Senator. What Durbin really fears, Troy, is investigation into his own activities. And I think you see this again and again. The other nomination among two that scares the daylights out of them is Kash Patel. Unqualified for the job. Senator Durbin, were you ever a federal prosecutor? Senator Durbin, did you ever win over 60 specific intelligence cases as a prosecutor? Have you ever run a department the size of the U.S. Defense Department? Did you ever serve on the national security staff for the President of the United States? If there has ever been a man in the history of the country better qualified to be FBI director than Kash Patel, well, I don't know who that would be. But to have some machine ward healing hack like Dick Durbin, whose sell date is long past in terms of his Senate service, questioned either the integrity or the qualifications of Kash Patel, it's laughable. It's truly laughable. The biggest fight, I think we all know this, is going to be over Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard scares the daylights out of the deep state. That's because as the director of national intelligence, she would be at the nexus point where she could see everything that has transpired by our intelligence agencies in the last 20 years. And there's a lot there that they don't want the American people to see. I was glad to see, for example, President Trump reiterate just 2 days ago his intention to declassify all of the documents having to do with the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Also said he would release all of the documents pertaining to the assassination of Senator Robert Kennedy, whose son, I'm happy to say, gave me this necktie. I would also look into the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. That one's particularly interesting, Troy, because the King family brought a civil suit against the U.S. Secret Service, the FBI, the Memphis police, and the federal government, claiming their involvement in the murder of Dr. King, and they won that civil suit. That means a federal judge has ruled that there was government involvement in Dr. King's assassination. So these past crimes, I think, scare the daylights out of the deep state. Now you add on top of it that shocking audio tape that we played right here on the Stone Zone just the other day, where the former executive director of the Democrat National Committee and crony of President LBJ is caught discussing the fact that Johnson hired Malcolm Mac Wallace to shoot and kill President John F. Kennedy. This is in a conversation with Billy Sol Estes, another Johnson crony, who would later go to jail and write a book in which he said that he sat in several meetings with other Johnson associates in which the murder of Kennedy was planned. So the deep state has a lot to cover up. I understand that Ed Martin, who is a former prosecutor, a former deputy attorney general, I believe, in Missouri, is going to be the U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. That means he will have access to all of the records of the January 6th prosecutions, for example, all of the records pertaining to the prosecution of General Flynn, Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, all of Jack Smith's records. This is a nightmare for the deep state. They really do seem to be standing down. I have to admit to you, Troy, the entire time that I was in Washington for the inauguration, I didn't see a single protester. I neither saw nor smelled any protesters. They spent a fortune on metal fencing to keep people away from the Capitol and to keep people away from some of the central events. They closed down a lot of the streets. The people that I did see who were clearly not inauguration goers were Trump enthusiasts. I had people who, when they first approached me, I thought might be homeless. Of course, everybody's bundled up, so it's a little hard because, but instead, they were telling me how much they love Donald Trump and his agenda. The other thing I have to say, Troy, you played this yesterday, and I'm very proud that you did. The multicultural inaugural ball was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. First of all, there were too many people in a space that was too small. So it was oversold. It was actually packed to the rafters. And it was an incredible collection of Black people, white people, Hispanics, Asians, Central Americans, South Americans, Hindus, Muslims, Catholics, Protestants. I imagine there are probably even a few atheists in there. It was an incredible melting pot of Americans and visitors, all of them excited about the return of Donald Trump to the White House. A very special thanks to Pastor Mark Burns for putting together that incredible event. It was one of those low ticket, unofficial events. There were so many people that were spilling out of the building into the sidewalk. There was so much love in the room. It really, one of the greatest political experiences of my entire life. And that covers a lot of American politics.
Well, I think that's tremendous, Roger. And we're so proud to play that clip yesterday. People really loved it. And, you know, you're talking about a lot of people that are very happy about Trump coming into the White House. There's one person who's not, and that is a former national security advisor, John Bolton. Now, John Bolton went out into the media over the last couple of days, and he's claimed that President Trump has revoked his Secret Service protection. So there's a lot of people asking questions. Why does somebody like John Bolton even have Secret Service protection? I wanted to get your thoughts on this because he's been really attacking the president, claiming that he's Hitler, claiming that just unbelievable things that just have no basis in reality, attacks on the president. What do you have to say about this situation? Do you think it's legitimate, or do you think Bolton's just trying to get into the news?
You know, I know John Bolton. I've known him for a number of years. I was mistaken about the fact that at one point I thought that he was just an operative. In other words, I understood that the job he'd done as national security advisor to the Bushes. And I thought, quite frankly, that, you know, perhaps he would just be loyal to whatever boss he worked for. But the truth was, as Donald Trump has now written, Bolton wanted to take the nation to war over any slightest provocation. So when an American drone was shot down in which no one was killed and we lost a drone worth a couple $100, he wanted to start World War III over that. He's irrelevant, but more importantly, his philosophy is irrelevant, meaning the American people are tired of these endless foreign wars in which our inherent national interests are just not clear. Why are we shipping billions of dollars to Ukraine when we have homeless people here, when we have a crime epidemic here, or a drug epidemic here? It's a new day, and I think the foreign policy establishment that is committed to endless foreign war is in retreat. If you want some comedy, follow the X postings of Bill Kristol. Now, here's a guy who helped lie America into war. Here's a guy who knew that Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction, who knew that the Iraqis did not have yellow cake uranium to build nuclear weapons, who knew that there was no involvement of Iraq in the 9/11 attack on the United States, that none of the hijackers were Iraqis or came from Iraq, but tens of thousands of Americans and hundreds of thousands of Iraqis died in a completely unnecessary war. Bill Kristol has the audacity to question Donald Trump. Please, somebody give me a break.
No, I agree with you, Roger. I think it's unbelievable that Bill Kristol has the audacity to go out there and continue to say the ridiculous things that he says. And it's so obvious that it's just an attack on President Trump. And more importantly, Roger, it's an attack on his supporters. That's something I wanted to ask you. Being at the inauguration, it had to be special because Trump, more than anybody, has brought the regular American people into Washington, D.C. And there was a lot of kicking and screaming, Roger, before what you're talking about and how it sounds like the Washington establishment is starting to realize that, hey, the people who represent the American people, the people who want to see America put first in policy, those people are going to have a seat at the table in Washington. It seems that Trump has kind of solidified their place at the table, at least for the near future.
We're waiting here for one of the great show business legends of all time. Pat Boone is going to join us. In our household, there's only three. There's Jolson, there's Elvis Presley, and there's Pat Boone. Pat Boone has been a superstar in my view, a man whose show business career spans decades. He is going to join us here shortly. As soon as we get the word that he's with us, I want to cut to him because, well, his time is valuable. He's on the West Coast. He's gotten up early to do the show. I am really proud that he can join us today. So control room will let us know when he's ready. But it is amazing to see the left go absolutely crazy about what has happened. President Trump, with his executive orders, has accomplished more in 2 days than Joe Biden did in 4 years. And what's most impressive to me is you now learn that everything he said on the campaign trail was not just rhetoric. It was in fact, promises made, promises kept in area after area. And Troy, it's my understanding that the deportation process against illegals could start as soon as today.
Well, and Roger, we got news on Inauguration Day. We played the videos here the day after that the border has been shut down. So members of El Salvador, countries of people who come from countries like El Salvador and other countries in Central and South America that traveled these long distances to come to America to abuse our welfare system and to really walk into the open door that has been opened by Joe Biden. They are now learning that they don't have their appointments. They don't have the ability to gain access to the country like they did before. And as President Trump promised, borders are closed. And being somebody who's seen so much in politics, Roger, the rarity it is for somebody to keep their promises in politics in Washington, D.C., and especially with something like the presidency that has so many working parts. to really enforce an agenda and stay true to what you've promised on the campaign trail. It's a lot harder than it looks, and it's something you shouldn't take for granted. Am I right?
That is absolutely true. I do want to also say that Isabel DeLuca, one of the January 6 detainees who got a pardon yesterday, is going to join us tomorrow on the Stone Zone, as well as the attorney and girlfriend of Jeremy Brown, the January 6 detainee who has not been released. We got a clip here of Isabel DeLuca. Let's run that.
Well, I'm trying to get around my head around. Take the table. Did you remove a table from the Capitol?
No, I touched a table. Like, I put my hand on a table and they accused me of stealing the table, theft of government property, and they came to me with a plea deal the day before the election saying that if I pled guilty to stealing the table, which carried a maximum sentence of 1 year in prison and a $100,000 fine, that they would drop my trespassing charges.
This is, Brandon, you've been on me for years on this. I'm so glad you told your story. Isabella, we're going to continue covering this because I think actually people have to really understand what happens with these prosecutors and how these cases go down, because this could happen again unless this is prevented from happening again. Brandon, Isabella, both of you.
Again, very happy for our friend Isabel DeLuca and so many of the January 6th detainees who finally got justice. Now I'm anxious for the new U.S. attorney in D.C. I'm not even sure, by the way, that position is codified in law, but nonetheless, now we will have the records. All right, let's go immediately to our guest. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm 72 years old, and therefore I'm in the same generation as the superstar who's about to join us. Pat Boone has been a show business legend, singer, actor, entertainer, advocate. Let's bring him right in. Pat Boone, thank you so much for joining us today in the Stone Zone.
Glad to be in the Stone Zone with you, kid. To me, you're just a kid, you know. I'm 90.
God bless you. You know, Pat, you won't remember this. I met you when I was 12 years old at a Goldwater rally in Southern California. I was a kid, but you have been out there as an advocate for freedom, as an advocate for the Constitution, as an advocate for America for a long time. Many people today in show business, you know, they hide their candle underneath a bushel basket, as they say. They don't step up. You've never done that. You have always been out there as an advocate for freedom. You're a spokesman for 60 plus. Jim Martin is I learned more from Jim Martin about how to communicate politically than probably any person in my career. It is an incredible honor to have you on the show.
Well, I don't know what to say to all that except thanks. And of course, I'll hold this up as a emblem of what you're talking about. This is one of my latest efforts to wake America up. Where did America go? It's a song that's gone crazy on TikTok and in the millions. And it's I patterned it after Bob Dylan's Blowing in the Wind purposely, because when that song of his hit us in I think the 70s, it reminded us of and made us aware, focused on prejudices and things we still needed to clean up in our society, poverty. And I knew we needed something like that now because, as the Bible says, as Lincoln quoted, the nation divided against itself cannot stand. And that's just a fact. It cannot stand if we don't come back together somehow in unity, and each of us respect the other, even when we have differences. If we remain hopelessly divided, as even now after this incredible success of Trump to come back to the presidency, immediately the media and all the liberal side of all of this are condemning him, saying we'll not let him do what he's going to do, and they're still wanting to make him a condemned criminal. And instead of celebrating that America has decided what we want, how we want it, and it's coming into place, instead of celebrating that, it's still division. And it's just breaking my heart. I mean, this song, I don't know if you've heard it, but it's it calls for, it says, where's America gone? Like Abraham, Martin, and John, we silenced their voices and gave up our choices. Do we have the strength to move on? That is the strength to regroup and accept each other as brothers and sisters. And as Martin Luther King, said that we are all relatives under the skin. The skin color doesn't matter, but our character does. So anyway, here I am pontificating and not letting you talk, but I've gotten in the habit of doing that, maybe to my own harm as far as the business is concerned, but I couldn't care less about that now.
No, it's Pat. On the contrary, I'm glad to have you on, and you can talk as long as you want. How many American presidents have you met and performed for?
All of them except two, and I didn't mean this to be the case, from Harry Truman on, except I met everybody but Obama and John Kennedy, and not because I didn't want to, but it just didn't happen. But all the others, right through Bush and Reagan and all the others, I was chairman for many years of the Easter Seal Telethon, and I would bring the Easter Seal poster child to the Oval Office, whoever the president was. And of course, Reagan would always hand out jelly beans to the poster child. And all of the presidents were supportive of Easter Seals and the kids who were born with and suffering through handicaps of all kinds. And Easter Seals is one of those things like, well, goodness, like St. Jude's and the hospitals that are doing so many things to care for those who need our help desperately. So the presidents, all of them, I mean, I had some kind of communication with all of them, but Kennedy and Obama were the only ones I didn't meet personally.
Now, what's I think very impressive is the fact that at 90 years old, you're still working, you're still singing, you're still recording, you're still entertaining. Recently, you had a star turn in the biographical movie Reagan.
Yes.
You played Reverend George Otis,
Yes.
a real life preacher who in 1970 prophesied that Ronald Reagan, who, as you know, I worked for in 3 presidential campaigns, 1976 when he challenged Gerald Ford, 1980 when he defeated George Bush to become the Republican nominee and one of our greatest presidents. And then I worked for him again in 1984. This was a very significant movie in the moment in the film. I don't know if we have the clip. If not, we will try to add it later. But the other part I loved about the movie is they have a young actor, Chris Massaglia, I believe I said, actually plays you in the movie because of your friendship with Ronald Reagan. That had to be really something to see.
With Dennis Quaid, yeah, I'll tell you how it really happened. George Otis was not actually a preacher by profession. He was a very experienced businessman, but I called him the electric man because whenever he was talking about things of the spirit, he got so excited, his hands quivered. And we were at in Sacramento at the governor's mansion at the invitation of Ron and Nancy, who were friends of mine. Our kids went to school together, and so we had a great meeting in the afternoon, and then about to leave, and George Otis says, "Governor, can we have a word of prayer with you before we leave?" And he said, "Well, sure." And so we joined hands, and Shirley, my wife, and I, and a couple others added some words to a prayer. And then George, when he was holding Reagan's right hand, took his hand, started to say, "God, we thank you for our country. We thank you for our freedoms. We thank you for this man." And he stopped, and there was a silence, and we waited for him to finish the sentence. And then in a different voice, he said, "My son, I'm well pleased with you. If you continue to walk uprightly before me, you will dwell at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue." And more silence. And then he finished the prayer, in the name of Jesus, amen. And we all looked at Reagan. He was glassy-eyed, and because he was feeling this tremor through his body from George Otis. And he heard this prophecy and he said, well, that was something. That's all he could say. And that's the way we recreated the scene in the movie. And I played George Otis. I was too young to play Pat Boone, of course. I mean, too old. And then we had this kid, as you mentioned, playing me, and a young actress playing Shirley. And we recreated that scene, which actually did happen. And of course, it was a word of prophecy, and that prophecy came true completely. And Reagan did become our president, and he should be, I think, added to the other three presidents out there on that mountainside. Mount Rushmore.
It's very interesting that you say that. Recently, I was approached by a developer, a home builder in Nevada, who has 300 acres, including the side of a cliff. And he intends to recreate a life-size scale, I mean, actual scale Mount Rushmore that would include Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, Ronald Reagan, and Donald J. Trump. Now, you might imagine the local county commissioners are trying to hold him up with all kinds of red tape and bureaucracy, but this Patriots build this. It'll be the same size as Mount Rushmore, and you'll actually be able to see it from the Las Vegas airport. So, Pat, it's coming. I'm going to recommend that you're the man to bring out there to do the ribbon cutting and the dedication, because this is really going to happen.
Because I knew the man so well, you know, from the time before he was even governor, and was one of the very first entertainers to ever support him when he ran for governor. Even his buddies in the Rat Pack were not. Nobody thought he could be elected governor against Pat Brown, the very liberal, popular Democrat. But he was through and through the man that we all believed him to be. And there's never been I think, better, more cogent, and more committed president than Ronald Reagan, effective president. Now, of course, we've got a good guy in his mold, but with a decidedly different approach to things. But I'm expecting great things with this man, because he too is a miraculous answer to prayer. The reason that he was elected was that millions of Americans, what was it, 77 million or so? They didn't just vote, they prayed. And the Bible tells us that all authority, every authority, is from God. He gives us what either we need or what we want. In some cases, it's the same thing. But in this case, we got what we needed, and with an answer to our prayer, and do need, but it's not what all the others want. And so we're still divided. And that's what I'm trying to address with this song. Where did America go? And can America still survive? Yes, I say that old family Bible still holds our survival. And America can still be great again. That's the theme of the song.
I must tell you, as someone who's known Donald Trump for 45 years, after the events in Butler, Pennsylvania, where it's absolutely clear to me that the Lord spared his life for a greater purpose, he's changed very slightly. There is a serenity about him. There is a sureness. There's a deepness in his faith. He understands fully that his life was spared on that day because God had a bigger plan for him. I myself, as you may know, am redeemed in the blood of the cross. I wandered far from the Lord when I was a high-powered Washington power broker, lobbyist, political consultant. But as they say, there are no atheists in foxholes. And when the modern thugs went after me, and I had an opportunity to meet Franklin Graham, son of one of the men that I admire more than anyone in this century, Billy Graham, he gave me a sage piece of advice. And he said, look, you're looking for a political or legal solution to your problems. Let me tell you the solution to your problems, son. You need to turn your life over to Christ. You need to ask him to come back in your life. You need to ask for the forgiveness of your sins. You need to pledge to sin no more. You need to agree to walk in his way. And I will tell you now, Franklin Graham said, if you will do that, The Lord will lift you up. The Lord will protect you from your persecutors. The Lord will always shine the truth on the situation. And I had a complete change in my life. And from that moment on, everything changed for me. We learned that my trial was rigged by a jury forewoman who had lied about her knowledge of me and the case. We learned that the judge had withheld exculpatory evidence that would completely clear me. Now, in the District of Columbia, no one who believes what you and I and Troy believe can get a fair trial. But I've had 5 miracles in my own life, including my wife's survival from stage 4 cancer. This is from the healing power of Jesus Christ. There is no other explanation. Her doctors told her to get her affairs in order. Take a look at her at the inauguration. She is stunning. Now, almost 4 years cancer free. So there's your proof that Jesus Christ can do anything if you will simply walk in his way. I didn't mean to get off here on a tangent, but everything you say is true. This is why I admire you, because you have been so outspoken about your faith, and you have been an apostle for the Lord.
Well, I am so heartened by having you say that publicly, because, you know, I can't brag on myself. It's not comely to do that. But my book, the latest book, and I've had 2 or 3 million selling books, and this one is the latest. It's called If, and it is the most important word in the Bible. There is no blessing of God that comes without an if. Starting in the Garden of Eden, with everything perfect in creation, and a man and a woman created in his image, he said, you can have it all. I'll show you how it all works. It's for you. You'll have dominion over all of it if you obey me. Now, there's a tree in the center of the garden, and you're not to eat of that fruit, the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. You don't even need to know what good and evil is, because it doesn't exist at this point. That is evil. But they did disobey, and they did die. I mean, when God says something, you got to believe it. It's going to happen. And so every blessing of God, even John 3:16, for God so loved the world. Hey, that's great. He gave, yes, his only begotten son. Sure, that any who believe on him, all will not perish, but have ever. Wait a minute, hold on. What's that? Not perish? That's the if. If you don't receive him, you perish. And that's not because God doesn't love us. He's going to take us to heaven with him if we want to come. And we have to declare to him and to others that we do believe in him, and that we literally do want to be his kids. That's all he wants, is a family of kids who look like him, want to be like him, want to please him, and have him bless us, those of us who want to be his kids. So you put it so well, and that's what happened to me and my wife and my kids. I've got 16 kids and now 16 grandkids and 17 great grandkids. And I'm happy to tell you that we're all believers, and we're all saying yes to God, what God wants us to be and do in our lives now, because the eternity is our destination. And I sure want to be in God's family in heaven like you do.
Well, Troy, I know that you're champing at the bit to ask a question, but first I'm going to do a quick crass commercial break here. Pat, you've got a great album. I ordered it back when you were on my 77 WABC radio show, Country Jubilee. There it is, folks. This is an incredible album. Pat Boone still recording, still entertaining, still working. We're going to show you the website where you can order your very own copy of Country Jubilee. There it is. Go to goldenlabelartists.com. Order this incredible record. Comes in several formats. You do not want to miss it. This is, well, Pat, you tell us a little bit about the album.
Yeah, I will too. And that's a record company I started for people like me and Andy Williams and all the performers who've sold millions of records, but weren't on anybody's label. They were dropped eventually. We all were, in favor of the hat acts. That is the country performers who pull the hats over their head. You can't even see their face, but there's a singer under there somewhere. And I recorded during my whole 70-year career. And this is a factoid. that hardly anybody but knows, but you now don't know. Frank Sinatra recorded 1,500 songs, and he is the greatest pop singer of all time. Bing Crosby was my role model. He recorded some 2,000 songs. And I have recorded 2,700 songs, more than any artist in history and more than any other artist ever will, because it's too costly to record today. Nobody can record 2,700 songs. But all of my recording included, I'm a country boy, grew up in Nashville, and my wife was Red Foley, the Hall of Fame great singer, his daughter. And so I had been recording these great country hits in my own albums all these 70 years. So what we did was put together this album of 26 million selling country hits in one album, sung by one artist. And you're looking at him. And I recorded Tennessee Waltz. Of course, Patti Page had the original big hit, but on and on, Hank Williams songs and Eddie Arnold songs and George Jones and Cowboy Copas and all these great artists, and one album. And so there's never been an album like it. And if you're a country music fan, you got to love this album. And I must say, it sounds self-serving, but I think I do every song justice. I think Hank Williams, Eddie Arnold, and the others would be very pleased with the way I do their songs. And of course, then I added my own song to it, which is a new current big hit called Grits, a song that came to me in a dream. And I was chafing in my dream that I wasn't considered really a country artist, though I grew up in the country and have been recording country songs all these years. And the words of this song came to me in that dream. Grits, grits, bestest food there is, country caviar, Tennessee foie gras, yes, grits, grits, bestest food there is. Keep your haute cuisine or keep your fancy food, give me my grits. And to my delight, that song became a big hit in country. And those words, I have to give God credit for the lyrics. Country caviar, Tennessee foie gras. Those words were never heard in a country song before or since. And yet it's perfect description of that wonderful food we call grits.
All right, Troy Smith, I'm sure you've got a question for this legendary entertainer and patriot and Christian. Fire away.
Absolutely, sir. It's an honor to speak with you here today. And my question is, as I'm listening to you, it's kind of amazing. You are a legend in your own right in the recording industry. And I mean, everybody knows you. But talking to you, I get the sense that you put your faith and your country ahead of your career. And that's something that's so unbelievable as somebody as accomplished as you. What can you tell us about how you structure your life in that regard and how you believe in your country? I mean, you've sacrificed, I would assume, a tremendous amount of business in your life because you care for your country and you're outspoken. Can you speak about that and what people like me can maybe learn from that to put our country first?
Boy, that's very insightful what you said. You've said a lot of things that are true. Yes, you could say I sacrificed, but at the same time, whenever I made my decisions, and even while I was a teen idol at 21, 22, and Elvis Presley was my opening act the first time we met, and he only had one record, but I had 3 million sellers at that time. And of course, through the 50s, I had 44, I think, chart records in the 50s, and Elvis had 41. But I had a 6-month head start on him. And in the middle of all of that, me singing Tutti Frutti and Ain't That a Shame and rock and roll, and being a teen idol, married with kids, I recorded the first ever million-selling country gospel album called Hymns We Love, because I knew that my fans, all teenagers and kids, they would buy anything. If I recorded a page of the phone book, they would buy it. And so I recorded my favorite country gospel songs that I had led singing with as a teenage song leader, even in church growing up. And I made an album of all of these great gospel songs, Hymns We Love. And it was the first million-selling hymn album right in the middle of rock and roll and Tutti Frutti and Elvis and me and all that other stuff, because I knew the kids would buy something even if they didn't know what it was in the beginning, but they would benefit from that because I had the sense. Is it Troy, did you say?
Yes.
Troy. Troy Aikman is a great, I love the sports announcer and the former quarterback. But I knew that God had given me a platform because I had started out to be a teacher preacher when I married Shirley at 19. And I didn't think that a music career it was too unlikely. I couldn't stake a new marriage and some hoped for kids on that. So I knew I could be a teacher and probably like some of my school teacher idols or icons, a preacher as well. And that's where I was headed until Randy Wood of Dot Records had seen me on Ted Mack's Amateur Hour and Arthur Godfrey's talent show winning, but no contract coming from any of it. And I thought, well, that was it. That was nice, but I'm on my way to being a teacher. But he contacted me in Denton, Texas, where I was at North Texas State, and said, I've been listening to you. I heard you on those shows. Do you want to make a record? I said, well, sure. Well, he sent me a ticket. I went to Chicago, recorded One Heart's Not Enough, Baby. 2 hearts will make you feel crazy. 1 kiss will make you feel so nice. 2 kisses take you to paradise. 2 hearts, 2 kisses make 1 love. And that silly song was a million seller immediately. And then it was followed by Ain't That a Shame? And suddenly I had to move to New York and I enrolled at Columbia University, where I eventually graduated magna cum laude, still thinking that this music thing was just it's just a passing thing. It won't last. And I had to be prepared to earn a living as a teacher. So I graduated magna cum laude in the middle of all the record success, and then took time off in the movie summer times to make movies. And all of this continued and continued. But I was aware that God had given me a platform where I could influence the lives of kids, which is what I wanted to do as my profession, but from a different platform, as a pop singer, a rock and roller of all things. And so I just tried to make the best use of it as I could. And God just kept opening doors and opportunities. And I had 2 command performances with the Queen of England. And as we've talked, I've met all the presidents and made movies with Anne Margaret and Shirley Jones, and they were Journey to the Center of the Earth, big movies, and all of this while attending church regularly with my kids, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and writing books like this. I mean, If is the latest, but I had other million-selling books, Twix 12 and 20 for kids, and a million seller. And at that time it was about 1959 and 60. And my book was only matched by Norman Vincent Peale's Power of Positive Thinking and Art Linkletter's Kids Say the Darndest Things. And then there was Pat Boone's Twix 12 and 20 of good practical advice to kids. So I managed, and it's just God giving me the opportunity and the guidance, really, to utilize a very conspicuous platform, which normally would not have been of any use to him, but because I wanted him to use me however he chose, he gave me this platform. And even the music that I recorded, the movies that I made and still am making, I'm in 3 films now that are out there. And I mean, at this age, I play Thomas Jefferson in a film that has yet to be released, but it's called American Miracle. And I play Thomas Jefferson and the Louisiana Purchase. Kevin Sorbo plays him in his mid-years, and I play him. In fact, I do his death scene in the movie. And then other films too they fall on me. They give me the opportunity, and they all are films with messages, which are spiritual messages, but they're commercial successes. And that's been the miraculous nature of the career of the guy you're looking at now. I didn't create any of it. I just went through the doors that were opened to me and tried to use them in the way I thought I should.
Well, very sadly, we are out of time because I could continue to ask questions for another hour. First, I want to thank Pat Boone, rock and roller, singer, entertainer, actor, Christian, patriot. As you can see, folks, he's just warming up in terms of his career. I want to thank you for being with us. God bless you, my friend. And we'll talk to you on the radio this weekend. Many, many thanks.
I love the Stone Zone. God bless you guys.
Thanks, Pat. All right, folks, there you have it. An absolute show business legend. In our family, there was Jolson, there was Elvis Presley, there was Sinatra, and there was Pat Boone. A great honor to have him here in the Stone Zone. I want to remind you that Troy Smith's show is available on World ViewTube every day at 3 p.m. Central. That's 4 p.m. Eastern. Then you can follow that by watching Troy and I on the Stone Zone. That's at 4 p.m. Central, 5 o'clock Eastern. Well, and if you miss us there, you can still catch us over on Rumble by going to rumble.com/Roger Stone. You see it there. Follow us on Rumble. Download the Rumble app on your cell phone and set a notification so you don't miss any of our great shows. Tomorrow, Isabel DeLuca, one of the January 6 detainees, or those charged in January 6 to talk about what freedom is like. But also, we're going to focus on the cases of Jonathan Mellis and Jeremy Brown, two men who still face long, unfair prison charges because of the maneuvering of the deep state against them. Until tomorrow, I'm Roger Stone. He's Troy Smith. We're glad to be with you. Thanks for joining us. God bless you and Godspeed.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?